I hesitate doing this. Why? Because by the end of the day, there are tons of critics of modern entertainment on the web nowadays. And not only do I not consider myself to be a critic, I don't really aspire to be one, at least for games at any rate. Truth be told, there are tons of people smarter than me, and probably better suited to do the job. With that said, I think whenever I finish a Let's Play of a game, having a post-game video with my thoughts on the matter is a good way to wrap things up and helps to provide a sense of closure. Many LPers seem to do this during the closing credits, and that's perfectly fine. If the closing music is somewhat on the generic side, I'll do so as well. However, sometimes the closing credits are just too short a time to share one's complete thoughts. More importantly, if the developers made an effort to provide a stronger ending musically, I personally like to sit back and enjoy the music. In other words, I like to keep my mouth shut. So I'd like to make a few things clear before I dive into the game. First, this is just my opinion on the game having played through it. I am not suggesting that my words are the be-all end-all. By the end of the day, I'm just a gamer with an opinion. If your opinion differs from mine, that's perfectly fine. In fact, that's the way it should be, honestly. At its best, it opens the door for potential intelligent, thoughtful discussion. At its worst, you have the flame wars and trolling that haunt the internet in ubiquity. I encourage the former. If you don't like what I have to say, that's fine. No hard feelings. All I ask is that you keep things rational, level-headed, and accept that everyone thinks differently. In other words, be respectful of everyone's opinions, and please, don't be a jerk. Second, these videos shouldn't be seen as reviews of any sort. Like the title says, these are just my final opinions on the game. I may discuss certain aspects of the game that typical reviews do, such as gameplay, graphics, music, etc. But I may also discuss other things entirely that come to mind. Third, this may be obvious to some but not to others, so I thought it worth at least mentioning. There will be spoilers about the game, so if you haven't watched the LP or played the game yourself, prepare to be spoiled. Also, depending on what I talk about, there may be spoilers with regards to other types of entertainment. You have been warned. So enough babbling on my part, on to my final thoughts on To the Moon. All in all, it's a good, enjoyable point-and-click adventure game, imaginative and charming. Obviously, its greatest strength is its music, of which a lot of home runs were hit. I often like to use the phrase, "nobody bats 100" in describing entertainment. Well, this game came as close as any with regards to its music. A ton of great, varied songs that are, in a word, beautiful. I apologize now as I'm likely butchering his name, but Kan Gao, the developer and composer for this game, really outdid himself musically, and should be applauded for his efforts. The puzzles to be solved are fine for what they are, and the varied gameplay, like the brief hallway dodging Neil had to go through near the end, was well thought out, though not extremely well executed. The controls felt a tad sluggish at times, and probably could have used a tiny bit more refinement to make it more crisp and responsive. I also wouldn't have minded some more consequences during that part of the game. For example, if Neil gets hit, say 5, maybe 10 times, he gets knocked out and you have to start over from the very beginning of the hallway. Rather than an obstacle to conquer, the entire quote-unquote level, if you could call it that, came off as a hindrance, since you could theoretically just have Neil plow through with practically zero consequences, except getting knocked backwards a bunch of times. Also, I wouldn't have minded one, no more than 2 super tough puzzles, just to balance out some of the easier ones you encounter throughout the game. Still, this criticism I'm throwing out there shouldn't be seen as me bashing the game. By the end of the day, the puzzles and gameplay were good and fine, just a couple of steps down from the greatness of the music. The story and character development were quite strong, although the former was admittedly a tad confusing for me at times. I'm a fan of modern Doctor Who, and the game felt like a Doctor Who episode for me, with some of the explanations and technobabble being thrown out there admittedly going over my head. Still, the general premise was certainly fine, having Ava and Neil alter Johnny's memories to make his wish come true, while still keeping the love between River and Johnny intact. I think there was a lost opportunity for gameplay of some sort here. Maybe have the player accomplish some type of obstacle or puzzle, fighting to keep the love between Johnny and River while altering his memories. On the other hand, the lack of gameplay here hardly hurts the game. One grows attached to the primary characters, and I can definitely appreciate the cultural and game references, from the Fa RPG battle to referencing Doctor Who. I also find myself wondering about the morality of it all. In real life, Johnny's brother died from a car accident, and River to disease. In order to grant your wish, is it all right to change those memories and live a lie? I think this makes for a fascinating debate with no clear-cut answer. Do the ends justify the means? The thing that tilts the scales towards making it okay for me is that Johnny was on his deathbed with maybe a few days or hours to live. The memories of your life may have become untruths, but your wish is fulfilled. I'll end my mindless drivel by speculating on the tag, that's just my word for it, that Can put in the epilogue, where the world seems to blink as Neil walks away from the lighthouse. Are Neil and Ava trapped in something like the Matrix? Or maybe still stuck in Johnny's memories? Or perhaps the doctors are actually having a wish fulfilled the same way they fulfilled Johnny's wish? And if so, which doctor? Ava, Neil, or both? Or perhaps this is a side effect of the technology used to alter memories, with Neil, maybe Ava eventually, slowly losing their grasp on reality. Right now in development by Freebird Games is A Bird's Story, which takes place in the same universe that Neil and Ava are in, but before the events of To the Moon, and thus technically not a sequel. Though the protagonist of that game will grow up to be the patient in the sequel for To the Moon. For me personally, I can't wait for A Bird's Story to come out, just to see and hear the music that comes out of that project. I hope you are too.